I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning for this announcement. Today, we're here to talk about public safety and the challenges we continue to face as a community and a state, made only more evident amid the COVID-19 crisis. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, gun sales have been soaring in Ohio and all across the country. Domestic violence hotlines, meanwhile, are reporting increases in call volume, a troubling sign as advocates warn of increased risks for abuse. We all know the spike of homicides occurring right now here in Columbus and cities across this state and country. This will be the most violent year on record, and we know that the vast majority of homicides are committed with firearms. We also know that most of these guns are obtained illegally. Against that backdrop, it's particularly clear we need a functioning background check system that blocks gun sales to individuals convicted of felonies or domestic violence crimes, or those who otherwise disqualified by law from purchasing or possessing a firearm. It is unacceptable that after so many years of public reports and investigations, major gaps persist in our background checks that continue to put the public at risk. As a city, we rely on a properly functioning background check system. We run background checks on all new employees. Most importantly, our peace officer and emergency response personnel. We also run background checks on individuals who engage in the short-term rentals of their homes or apartments. We want to make sure that our residents and visitors are safe. The only way to do that is to have a background check system that correctly identifies all individuals who have been convicted of certain offenses. The protection and safety of every Ohioan requires nothing less. I would now like to introduce City Attorney Zach Klein. City Attorney Klein.
Thank you, Mayor Ginther. It's great to be with you, Mayor Whaley and Mr. Tershwell today. Today, I'm proud to announce that Columbus, along with the city of Dayton, have taken a concrete step to protect all residents of our cities in the state of Ohio from gun violence. The idea for this first of its kind in the nation lawsuit came from my office. We looked at the exploding gun violence and lack of proper reporting in the background check system and knew that we needed to fix a system that everyone agrees is broken. As gun violence has exploded across the nation and the state, and even in our own city, we knew we should leave no stone unturned in Columbus's multifaceted and fervent response to this issue. Regardless of where one stands on gun laws, nobody should disagree with the central premise of this litigation: keeping guns out of the hands of criminals by improving a background system so that it's accurate and it's complete. This means maintaining a background check system that includes records for everyone who is convicted of a felony in Ohio, so they can't purchase a gun, get a concealed carry permit, or get hired for a sensitive job where that conviction may be disqualifying. Unfortunately, that's not what we have here in Ohio. For far too long, the state of Ohio has maintained a criminal background system that is dangerously broken. Despite the critical role a fully populated background check system plays in protecting public safety, Ohio's system continues to suffer from massive gaps. As the lawsuit alleges, a 2018 survey commissioned by former Governor John Kasich showed that the state collects all criminal conviction information from only 60% of the relevant courts, meaning the other 40% of relevant courts in Ohio are not providing all required information to be entered into the background check system. Ohio Auditor Keith Faber even more recently found that over half of Ohio's 88 counties had at least one court or law enforcement department that didn't report records on time, or in a few cases, report records at all. Governor Mike DeWine has previously said that the system is dangerously deficient. Auditor Faber has said the system suffers from a systemic failure. It is not, according to him, a local or isolated issue. It's the entire system. And even the Buckeye Firearms Foundation has said the background check system problem is unconscionable and it must be fixed. As you can see, it's been well known that criminal convictions don't always make it into Ohio's background check system. But problems continue to persist unaddressed. And as the complaint filed today explains, Ohio law assigns to the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, BCI, and its superintendent the primary and mandatory obligation of maintaining an up-to-date and accurate background check system. So our lawsuit has a simple purpose. We're seeking action from BCI to address these clear problems so that we can improve public safety for all Ohioans. Let me be clear. We do not bring this litigation to criticize the actions of hard-working public servants. We bring this litigation to protect Ohioans and to make sure that after years of reports, years of task forces, and years of audits, our background check system is finally fixed once and for all. There's a clear bipartisan acknowledgement that the background check system needs improvement, and we're hopeful that this lawsuit will be the mechanism to actually get it done. So at this time, I want to introduce a friend of the city of Columbus, a friend of Mayor Ginther and I, and unfortunately someone who has real experience with gun violence in her city, the mayor of Dayton, Nan Whaley. Mayor Whaley.
Thanks, Attorney Klein, and thanks from Mayor Ginther. As elected officials, one of our greatest responsibilities is to do what we can to protect public safety. The way we do that is through action, and action is what we're seeking through today's lawsuit. It's not so secret that when it comes to preventing gun violence, there's plenty that people don't see eye to eye on. But the truth is that there is much more we do agree on. People want to be safe. They expect the laws on our books to be enforced. And it's just common sense that if someone is prohibited from buying a gun, including through a felony conviction or history of domestic violence, they shouldn't be able to pass a background check because of a bureaucratic mistake. I want to add on to what Mayor Ginther said and highlight another reason that fixing these problems is so important. When a person applies for a CCW permit, that person goes to the sheriff, who then runs a background check in a system that is broken. If that background check comes back clear, that person can get a CCW permit. Once a CCW permit is issued in Ohio, if that person wishes to buy a gun from a dealer, that person only needs to show their CCW permit. There is no reason for her or him to undergo another screening in order to purchase the gun. It is through a failure here that one mistake can be desperately compounded. We're well aware that fixing these problems in our background check system won't end gun violence. No law prevents all crime. But every sale that our background check system blocks to someone with a violent history is a potential tragedy averted. And solving these particular problems is something that's well within reach here in Ohio. We won't be able to stop shootings in Ohio overnight, but at the bare minimum, when a problem is as clear as this one, and there are straightforward solutions, our constituents deserve action. Going to court is never our first choice, but after years and years of inaction, we feel strongly that today's action can expedite a solution. We will all be safer the day these problems are fixed. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Eric Tershwell.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Tershwell. I'm the Managing Director of Everytown Law, which is the litigation arm of Everytown for Gun Safety. We are representing the cities of Columbus and Dayton in this lawsuit, along with attorneys from the two city attorneys' offices. We also represent a third plaintiff in the case, Reynoldsburg, Ohio resident Megan Volk, She's the mother of school-age children, a gun owner, and someone deeply concerned about the threat of gun violence, her community, and beyond. In a moment, I'm going to summarize the legal case in a little bit more detail, but first, a couple of points on the big picture here. First, we believe that state officials have a clear legal obligation to make sure Ohio's background check system contains every record it should. As you've just heard, despite years of investigations, reporting, and task forces on this issue, public record makes clear there are still massive gaps and likely thousands of records missing today. These gaps mean that people legally prohibited from owning guns, including individuals with felony and domestic violence convictions, pass a background check and walk out of a store with a firearm, obtain a concealed carry permit, or be hired for sensitive positions, including working with young children. As you've heard, the cities of Columbus and Dayton find that unacceptable, as does Ms. Volk, and as should every concerned citizen. So now let me say a few more words about the specifics of the lawsuit. As the case alleges, Ohio law assigns to BCI and its superintendent primary and mandatory obligation to procure, that's the word in the statute, procure specified information concerning all persons convicted of felonies and other crimes, again now I'm quoting, from wherever procurable. While other government and court officials also have responsibilities under Ohio law to report information to BCI, today's lawsuit alleges that BCI has been failing for years to fulfill its own non-discretionary obligation to procure information about felony convictions. When state officials like BCI are failing to discharge their mandatory legal obligations, those who are affected, here that includes cities, citizens, they have the right to go to court and demand that the government be ordered to do its job. That's what plaintiffs seek here, plain and simple, a court order directing BCI to fulfill its legal obligations and ensure that all people convicted of felonies and other serious crimes are entered into the background check system so they can't buy guns from licensed dealers, they can't get concealed carry permits, they can't be hired into sensitive positions. The complaint we filed today, and we'll make this available, lays out all of these details in further specifics. So we look forward to proving our case in court, and we look forward to helping fix Ohio's broken background check system. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Mayor Ginther, and we can take some questions from folks on the phone.
Thank you, Eric, and thanks to City Attorney Zach Klein and Mayor Nan Whaley. Let me emphasize that this is not a partisan lawsuit. Instead, this is an effort to ensure that when somebody attempts to purchase a firearm or to obtain a concealed carry permit or to be hired for a sensitive job, we can safely say that they have no disqualifiers in their past that prevent them from doing any of these things. We'll now be happy to take questions from the media. We're going to use the raise hand function. You should see a hand icon in the bottom right corner of your screen. Click on the hand and you'll see a hand next to your name in the attendee list. That's how we know you have raised your hand. We'll unmute you to ask your question. Please tell us your name and what media outlet you're with. After your question has been addressed, please click the hand next to your name to turn off the function. If you have additional questions or follow-up, obviously, please click it again. With that, we'll take questions from the press. I think our first question is from Matthew Richmond. If you could introduce yourself and your news organization.
Hi, yeah, this is Matthew Richmond from IdeaStream in Cleveland. And I'm just wondering, I don't know if you all are familiar with the pilot program that the state started to improve reporting to the background check system here. I know Mayor Whaley that you're familiar with this, and I'm wondering if you could just talk about, if that pilot program seems like it could address this issue, and like if that's just sort of the solution, it's just going to take time.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Mayor Whaley, City Attorney Klein.
Yeah, I know that this is Nan. I know there's been effort there. One of the things I think that's most frustrating for us overall with the state moving on gun issues is very, very slow. And so, as we've said, this lawsuit is about how we can get faster action. And this is a big concern for us in our community, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and I'll just to build off Mayor Whaley's statements that this recognition in a bipartisan way from Republican governors, Republican auditors at the state of Ohio, it really starts back in 2015, and the recognition then that we have a broken system. And so it's great that there is a pilot program, but there's really no evidence that this pilot program is going to be successful. Hopefully it will. When we file these really important lawsuits, to me, it's about fixing the problem. And if the problem's fixed, then we can dismiss our lawsuit. But the reality is we may need judicial intervention, which is why we are seeking this litigation in order to get what we, I think, as Ohioans all deserve, and that is a complete and accurate background check system for the safety of all Ohioans.
Our next question is from Noah Blundo. Noah, do you have a question? Noah, do you have a question? Okay, our next question is from Earl Hopkins.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, just a quick question. As you said, issues like these, I forgot to mention, reporter for the Columbus Dispatch. As you all mentioned, issues like these are, they take time, obviously, because as you pointed out, this has been, a longstanding, topic for many years. So I'm curious, how long is this process, like this lawsuit, like how long are you all anticipating this process for change will ultimately take place?
Thank you for the question. I'll turn to City Attorney Klein and Mr. Tirschwell.
Well, as I indicated, this is 5 years at a minimum in the making, and we have asked a court, or we're going to be asking a court by filing this lawsuit to be part of the solution. And I think it comes down to, first, the acknowledgement we have a problem, which there is no doubt a clear understanding and recognition that there is an acknowledgement in a bipartisan fashion that our background check system in Ohio is broken. But then it comes down to the will to fix it. And in a 5-year, glacial moving ship, there really hasn't been much action taken to fix it, despite the recognition and acknowledgement. So this lawsuit has been filed in order for us to, take the immediate steps that we can control to fix it for the safety of all Ohioans. And I'll add that it's always hard in the litigation world to predict a certain time of how long something will take. But having judicial intervention and having judicial oversight, we can only hope will remedy this situation for the safety of Ohioans. Eric, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, let me just add that I think one of the really important points that we're trying to establish with this lawsuit is that the primary obligation here to make sure that all felony and other serious criminal convictions get into the background check system lies with BCI. And I think what is laid out in the complaint, what the public record shows, is that for too many years, BCI has simply relied on others who do have legal obligations to provide the information to them, but as the public record shows, have not been doing that in a consistent way. And so one of the really important things to establish here is that the primary obligation, and if you look at the statute, first section that talks about how conviction information is supposed to get into the database and who has the primary responsibility, it's BCI. And yes, clerks of court, for example, are obligated to send weekly reports, but the public record shows that for years, they haven't been doing that in a consistent way. Some clerks send them monthly instead of weekly. Some clerks are not sending them at all. In this 2018 survey that is a public record, only 60% of the clerks, meaning 40% of elected clerks, said they're not providing all conviction information. And we're trying to establish that clerks should do their job, but BCI has the primary obligation here and the responsibility to make sure that it's happening. They cannot just sit back and say, well, we only get what we get.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the press? I think we have another question from Matthew Richmond.
Hi, thanks. I know that this is BCI's responsibility. You made that very clear. I guess, could you just talk a little bit, though, about what sort of mechanisms they can use to require so many different agencies to do this reporting on an ongoing basis? What can they even do?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Richmond. City Attorney or Mr. Tershwell, any response?
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. So I'd say a couple of things. First of all, one of the purposes, obviously, of a lawsuit is to take discovery and sort of find out and better understand the problem. And so I think that's certainly one of our goals, is to understand more precisely what the problems are and what the potential solutions are. If you look at the different public analyses, the auditor's report, and other reports about the deficiencies in the system, you'll see a number of suggestions about how things can be made better. Some say there needs to be just a better technology and a stronger mechanism that will facilitate the reporting. Some say you need more training and education. Others say there has to be more accountability when the records are not being sent and follow-up. So there are a range of potential solutions, but the sort of first things that have to happen are, number one, to really scope out the full range of the problem, and then get the court to confirm that BCI has this obligation. And then what we're seeking is a court order basically directing BCI to take steps necessary to carry out that obligation. And those steps are things that the lawsuit will help to determine.
Our next question is from Camry Nelson.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm with Spectrum News 1, and I was wondering, where could we find the details of this lawsuit detailing everything? Is that made public?
Yeah, let me just jump in and say, yes, the lawsuit was filed earlier this morning, and it is. We are in the process of making it public, and we will post it. And why don't I come back at the end and I'll give you the precise detail of where to look for it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Tershwell. Any other questions from the press this morning? Looks like we have a question from Cornelius Froelich.
Yeah, hi, Cornelius Froelich, the Daily News. Just a quick question. I know that every town has done some other litigation in other parts of the country this year related to gun violence, and gun violence prevention. Can you just provide a quick summary of how those lawsuits are going? I know they're in multiple other jurisdictions.
Mr. Tershwell?
Yes, thank you. You're certainly correct that we do have litigation around the country in courts seeking to advance gun safety and gun violence prevention. That I think it's sort of it would take a long time to summarize how all those cases are going. But what I can tell you is that this case, as I was highlighted at the beginning, really is, I think, the first of its kind where cities are bringing action to make sure that states are doing their job with respect to background check system. And this is a problem, deficiencies in the background check system, that is quite severe in Ohio, but it's not unique to Ohio. So I can tell you that while this is the first case of its kind, we don't expect it to be the last.
Any additional questions from the press? And then I'll let Mr. Tershwell kind of close us out with where folks can find what has been filed. Ms. Nelson, do you have a follow-up question, or are you still waiting on details on where to find the suit, the filing?
I was just waiting for details.
Great. Okay. Well, I think that wraps up our questions for this morning. I'll turn things back over to Mr. Tershwell to share that detail.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the answer is that we have sent out a press release, which includes a copy of the lawsuit. But if for any reason you didn't receive that, you can contact either of the offices, any of the offices, the mayor's office, the city attorney's office, or every town, and we'll be happy to give you a copy.
Thank you, Mr. Tershwell. I want to give an opportunity for City Attorney Klein or Mayor Whaley to share any closing comments before we wrap up this morning. Mayor Whaley?
Yeah, I just want to say how much I appreciate the leadership of you, Mayor Ginther, and Attorney Klein, as well as the folks at every town on this work paying attention to this issue in Ohio. It's been difficult and saw very little movement since the August 4th shooting in Dayton, but we are committed to common sense gun legislation and common sense gun solutions, particularly, as we mentioned before, because the majority of our community, the majority of Ohioans, and the majority of Americans believe that we can move through this. So I appreciate your leadership on this and appreciate being a part of this effort.
Thank you, Mayor Whaley. City Attorney Klein, you want to close us out?
Thanks, Mayor Ginther. Just a reiteration that this is something that should have unanimous support from everyone except people who have criminal convictions. That this is a step in the direction of improving the public safety in a bipartisan way where everyone acknowledges that we have serious problems with Ohio's background check system. And we have data and evidence through the public record to prove it. And that usually through litigation, there is an adversarial nature to litigation naturally, but this isn't adversarial. This is us all working together and to find a solution in an expedited way to improve the public safety for everyone. And we have a real chance to do it with this first of its kind lawsuit in the country that Columbus, Dayton, and every town are leading. So thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, City Attorney Klein. Thanks, everyone, for joining us here this morning. If there are additional questions or details that members of the press would like, please feel free to reach out to Robin Davis in my office or to every town, Mayor Whaley, or City Attorney Klein's offices. Thank you all for joining us here today and appreciate your time. Have a great day.